Okay, good evening. This is the Monday, January 25th, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting. We are streaming live on YouTube, and for the first time at a regular meeting, we are entertaining public participation via Zoom. So this is kind of an experiment. We'll see how it works. Let's all of us get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 1 on our agenda is public participation. Do we have any public comment? Don't see any hands raised either on camera or on the participant screen. I'm going to double check if we have any emails. I see none. So let's move on to item 2, the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any commissioner would like to remove?
Yeah, F, please.
Okay. Any other items? Hearing none, let's talk about item 2F, resolution number 2021-11, approving the hiring of the Rogers Group LLC for the PA State Accreditation of Police Department. Chief, do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you, and thank you for having us at the meeting. Radnor Township Police wants to remain cutting edge, and to do that, it is critical to have the best policies and procedures. In the United States, there are really 2 high levels of standards that are, and getting accredited by one of those agencies is critical. Radnor Police are requesting the commissioners to permit us to hire the Rogers Group to help us become accredited by the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association. There's 125 standards that the police department must meet with the cutting edge policies and procedures that go on across the United States. This group of police chiefs that accredits the police department not only certify you for 1 year, but they actually carry us on for year after year to have cutting edge policy and procedure. So as we know, there's some dynamic changes in the country. Radnor Police will be up to date with the latest standards and policies that we would implement on a daily basis. This would allow for greater officer input, buy-in from the staff, professional status, and if somebody were to challenge our capabilities, we would actually have proof of our excellence by meeting the highest standards in the country and in Pennsylvania. We have brought on the Rogers Group. Normally, and I'll just introduce them, it's Madeline Lewis and Jen Ruggieri from the Rogers Group. Normally, this is a 2-year process, and it's something that the Radnor Police have needed to take on, and we're ready to meet that challenge. It is a major challenge. It'll be one of the biggest things that we ever tackle in the police department as far as policy and procedure. By bringing the Rogers Group on, we basically take a 2-year process, and with their team approach, and our officers' hard and dedicated work, will turn it into a 1-year process as long as everything goes correctly. And the Rogers Group could actually talk about the process and their professional experience, but this teamed approach will get us to the goal line of being a PLEA Act compliant police department, hopefully in the first quarter of 2022.
Can I just, Chief, ask a quick question? Was this part of the budget that, was this the same group and the same type of accreditation that we looked in the budget?
So the answer is this was in the budget, and we were not able to get, normally you sign full-time police officers for the 2-year process that I just described. With that, we put in the budget for this year to have this as a backup plan should we not be issued the coordinator for that. So although this is a major burden to the officers, we can meet that challenge, but we are not increasing our staff. But we do need assistance getting this off the ground. I also believe in this time frame that I discussed of cutting the time frame of 2 years to 1 year is critical in this day and age. We know the events of the country, Commissioner, and I believe that everybody will be trying to get on this bandwagon who is not accredited, and us being in the forefront will expedite and possibly delay even longer than a 2-year wait list to go through the extensive process.
Okay, thanks. And just 2 more questions. The cost on this, and then does he, I guess we pay some kind of insurance. Does that help lower the insurance once we get accredited? And what is the cost on this program, or what are the cost savings on this program moving forward?
It's 32.5 is what we're requesting for, this major haul of 1 year, a massive amount of work. The Rogers Group has already given us a preliminary time frame, including our first mock assessment in November of this year. So that's where the bulk of that will go. There's a maintenance fee following if we decide to continue on, and we will use the Rogers Group for that because it seems to be extremely cost effective over a full-time personnel. And I hope that I answered your question.
What are the cost savings associated with this? And then what are the costs maybe moving forward every year? Do we have to use the Rogers Group? Excuse me. So it's 32,000 upfront. And then are there cost benefits when it comes to insurance or stuff like that? Are you able to hire better police because we have these programs? Does it make it more competitive, our police force? If you just speak to that.
So there is a maintenance fee, and we have to budget that in, of course, each year based on what the Rogers Group assessment is of where we're at. If you will, sir, the better we do in the beginning and the more professional are, it's the less work the Rogers Group has to do to assist us in the following year. But I believe I can say that it's approximately $10,000 to $11,000 for maintenance following the first big year. And that's kind of the massive wheel. I think Madeline's shaking her head yes in confirmation of that. What I do believe 100%, and Mr. White has been in some of the interviews as well as Mr. Tate, that when officers do an assessment right now, there's a shortage in police officers, and they are picking the best departments, just hands down. They want departments with special units, growth, and professional leadership. By having the accreditation and the support of the Rogers Group, I believe when they evaluate us, they will say that's a department that I choose to be with because it's a place I can build a career and stay till my retirement.
Thank you.
And then if I could, just a real quick add on to that is, Commissioner, we did reach out to our insurance provider. We do pay an extra insurance rider for police professional services. They acknowledge that, accredited departments do a little bit better in the insurance renewal, but the way that the township's insurance works is that it's on the aggregate of all of our policies together. So it's not so much that we'll save in one area versus another. Ultimately, having the accreditation over time and successfully meeting the very strict requirements of having that should lend itself to better insurance renewals. But there's no hard and fast formula, if you will, that says if you're accredited, then you get this kind of discount on insurance. If our department is successful through the accreditation process over the long term, we will be successfully following all of the criteria that the chief laid out over time, which in turn should allow the insurance providers to feel better about offering us ratables.
Are there any additional commissioner questions?
I just have one quick question. So Chris, I know that you did ask for, an officer to help with this in the budget that we were unable to accommodate. Is this something your staff is you guys have the bandwidth to do this now? You're going to be able to get everything done that you need to get done?
As every other great department in this township, we're going to put it on the shoulders of the great officers and just get it done. It needs to be done, and we'll make it work. There may be a little of this, a little of that, or a little less of this on a particular day, but I told the manager we'll get it done.
Yeah, and just to add on to that real quickly, if you'll recall, the position that we had requested the board was a combination of a full-time EOC manager who would take on this responsibility. So the position we'd asked for was would have been geared and spent most of their time dealing with the EOC and the township's emergency responses, both preparedness and the active one that we've had going on for almost a year now. So while the chief is correct, so the part of this that we were going to have that full-time EOC manager do will just be divvied up amongst the existing officers.
Great, thank you.
Any additional commissioner comment? Any staff comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, I will move for item 2F. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the consent agenda. I'll move for the consent agenda, items 2A through E. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Consent agenda passes unanimously 5-0. Moving on to committee reports. Item 3A, resolution number 2021-12, 208 North Aberdeen Avenue Land Development, 6 townhomes, final land development approval.
Jack, before you get into this, hi, it's Maura. I think we have 6 commissioners on, just so you,
Oh, do we have a 6th now?
we do.
Ah, okay, excellent, thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioner Larkin, as you noted, this is final. This land development application previously received preliminary plan approval from the Board of Commissioners. They were before this board for caucus for final approval. They are now before you tonight seeking final land development approval for the project. There is one waiver being requested. That is for the mapping requirement, the 500-foot mapping requirement. And I will leave it at that if Mr. Cornelia or others wish to jump in on that.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. I looked back on my notes today, and the first time the board saw this was in October of 2019. The plan hasn't changed since then. It's the same plan that we presented since that period of time. As the board is aware, we did receive a modification of the ordinance, an amendment to the zoning ordinance in the C3 district. And this plan was presented with that modification. We did receive preliminary plan approval from the board. We proceeded to Planning Commission for their approval for final plan. It was unanimously approved. We did have the caucus with the Board of Commissioners a couple of weeks ago. And as Steve mentioned, this is for final plan approval.
Okay, are there any commissioner comments? Are there any staff comments? Are there any public comments? So I see 3 attendees. I don't see that any of them have their hands up, but frankly, it's my expectation that at least some of these people are on the call specifically to discuss this issue. So I'm going to go one by one and allow each of them to talk, I guess. Starting with Baron Gemmer, you are first in line. So I'm going to click the allow to talk button. And if you have anything to say, great. If not, then I apologize for putting you on at the wrong time. Baron?
Just watching, no comment at this time.
Excellent, okay. Ms. Pfizer?
Just watching, no comment.
Okay. And Ms. Myers?
Just watching, no comment.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, in that case, I will move for resolution number 2021-12, 208 North Aberdeen Avenue Land Development. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
A,
Motion passes 4-2. Moving on to item 3B, resolution number 2021-13, Radnor Township School District Accessibility and Wellness Project. Preliminary final land development approval. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
second.
Is there any commissioner comment?
Just briefly. I spoke to a bunch of school board members about this. It's much needed. It's welcome. The township is growing, our schools are growing, and we need the updates. I have my support. Radnor Township school districts are probably I think they're number one in the state. So if we can help them stay competitive, I think that's important. So this has my overwhelming support.
Okay, we've already had a presentation on this, so I don't want another one, but do we have any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I will ask, is there any staff comment? Hearing none, I'm going to go to public comment again. And I'm going to cycle through the 3 people that we have as attendees. And I'm also going to ask if they are all aware of some way to raise their hands so that I don't have to do this all evening.
Jack,
So-
I would just suggest we do a quick primer and don't put them on the spot. People can come and watch without comment. So
If-
there's a raised hand function in the bottom of your screen, and that will allow us to know that you'd like to have your camera and mic turned on. So please use that function during public comment.
That works for me. I'll give you guys a minute. And if there is anybody who wants to raise their hand, we'll move to them. Not seeing any, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank
Moving- Moving on to item 3C, our Drawson Farms lot line change plan for lots 3-2, 3-3, 3-4, 3-5, and OS 8A, caucus final, revised final subdivision plan. Do we have any commissioner comment or questions for the applicant, or does the applicant choose to give us any information on this?
Hello, I'm the applicant, Kathleen Marr, and I don't have any further information to give. I am, however, here to answer any questions.
Great. Do we have any questions? Hearing none, are there any staff comments? Looking to the public, and I don't see any hands raised. So I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Oh, this is just caucus, I think.
Yes. Can I just say something? So this is over at our Drawson. I've met with Kathleen and looked at what their plan is, and a lot of what they want to do is around preservation of open space and to actually save some huge, beautiful trees over on their property. So, so I commend them for their efforts and for going through this process to do that.
Okay. Excellent. We don't have a vote tonight, but we look forward to seeing you guys at the next meeting or the one after that, depending on our ability to advertise, and hopefully we will be able to get this through. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you, Lisa.
Moving on to item 3D, motion to confirm Mike Simmons as Public Works Director. You know, I have a couple of things that I could say, but I think that I'm going to throw this to the manager and ask for a little bit of feedback, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you. I am excited to bring to the board the appointment of Mike Simmons as our next Public Works Director. Mike was one of our internal candidates that applied. As the board and Mike is aware, we had a timetable to go through this process. Ultimately, that timetable took a lot longer, where Mike got some more on the job interviewing and training, but nothing like a pandemic, a massive snowstorm, and a hurricane, remnants of thereof to prove that you're the guy for the job. But when we talk about Mike, and I think the board and the public has seen it when he has participated, especially during the budget, is that he is someone who cares deeply about the department and the workers that are in public works that he gets the pleasure of working with all the time. He has the respect of the department and the guys that work for him. He's demonstrated that. He's demonstrated that he's a problem solver as these different variables are thrown his way. They've been able to roll with the punches. And through it all, the folks in the department speak highly of Mike, which is a great compliment to him. He's worked for the township for 30 plus years. So he's very well versed in Radnor Township and has a great knowledge of our infrastructure system and how to work with other departments and with the commissioners, hopefully to get things done. So again, I'm very excited to put in front of the board for your consideration, Mr. Simmons as our Public Works Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Is there any commissioner comment?
I would like to just say I'm very much in support of this appointment, and I'm very grateful for what you have been doing in the interim position. Everybody, that it has been a rough few months on Public Works with the storms, and everything is different in the pandemic, and you have stepped up to the challenge and kept things running, and I'm very grateful. So thank you.
And I'll just echo those comments. Mike, I wholeheartedly support this. Bill, I concur with your decision. And, thank you, Mike, for all you've been doing to serve the residents of Radnor.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for the support. Bill having my back throughout this whole time. And I still remember the first job I did at Radnor 32 years ago on Radnor Valley Road. And I will continue to work hard every day as long as I'm there.
If I did not know that you had taken over, I would not have known that there was any change, which is high praise because we've been doing a great job for a long time, even through trying circumstances.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege, and I'm just so glad and happy. Thank you.
If there's no additional commissioner comment, is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I will move for the promotion of Mike Simmons to Head of Public Works. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The same motion passes 6-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Now we're going to work you to the bone.
We already do.
Congratulations, Mike.
Congratulations, Mike. Well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Moving to item 3E, conditional offers of employment to 2 new Radnor Township police officers, Richard Boland and Dylan Glenn. Chief, could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, sir. We are proposing 2 candidates to go for their conditional offer of a appointment. Just to remind the commissioners, you have to pass a physical with a medical doctor and a psychological test. This is the final step. They've passed all their interviews and written test, physical agility, and this is the final phase. We hope to bring them before you very shortly to bring them on the police force.
Is there any commissioner comment?
Yeah, what, I guess, who are they replacing? Are they replacing the sergeants, or are they, and you're promoting within, or what's the hierarchy change?
One officer was just picked up by the Pennsylvania State Police. So to bring it back to just a couple meetings ago, we proposed 2 conditional offers. We were only able to move forward with 1 candidate. So that left 1 open spot. And in between that time and some interviews conducted by the township manager and myself, we then had an officer retire from the police department, and Officer Patrick Jennings, who we thank for his service. So that brought us back to keep our established number of 45. So that's where we were going.
Yeah.
Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 3F, resolution number 2021-14, awarding contract number B-20-013, storm sewer improvements to the Arthur Road cul-de-sac to Plymar Construction, the amount of $39,265. I will so move. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Steve, could you tell us a little about this? Steve, you are on mute.
That would help. Thank you. Commissioner, thank you. This is a project that's been on the books for some time. Actually was designed back in 2018. And, the manager brought these forth to the board, and they were funded. This is to take care of an issue in the cul-de-sac of Arthur Road, which has been problematic for many years. And the good thing is this has come in well under budget, and which means there'll be more money to go towards another project or projects. So I respectfully request the Board of Commissioners authorize the award of this contract to Plymar Construction.
Is there any commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 3G, ordinance number 2020-25, adoption, repealing chapter 260, taxation, article 1, amusement tax, sections 260-1 through 260-17. I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
John, do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. Good evening, commissioners. Back in December, after some discussion, the board authorized repealing the existing amusement tax ordinance, which has been on the books for several years. This is the repealer ordinance that would repeal the amusement tax provisions in the code. It's been advertised. It was advertised January 11th and January 18th in the Delco Times. And I really don't have a whole lot to say about it since you're repealing it, and it will go away once the board approves the ordinance, the ability to tax amusements under the code. So it's before the board for final action tonight.
Is there any commissioner comment?
Yeah. Just our budgets keep rising and we're getting rid of a tax, which is always a good thing. But if we do this, we should look at ways where we can get back some of that revenue. And as I stated before, amusement taxes, they're discretionary. I get it. But as I said before, we have a professional sports team in Villanova basketball in this township. And it is leaving a lot of money on the table for this. It goes well beyond the scope of a charity. It's probably $100 million entity, and it's just troubling that we're doing this. So I'll be voting no on it. because I think that it should be repealed and replaced with something.
Is there any additional commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 5-1. Are there any reports of standing committees of the board?
I have two quick things. First, I attended the board meeting of the Friends of the Library, or the library last week. The Friends of the Library, which is the group that does the book sales and additional fundraising for the library, they are seeking board members. So if anybody is interested, you can go to the Radnor Memorial Library webpage and look for the Friends of the Library, of Radnor Library. And I also just want to give a shout out and thank you to our police department who've been working with the library on an emergency preparedness plan. So thank you for your help and support to them as they work through that process. And then I just want to give kudos to the Shade Tree Commission. They're already starting to work on their plans for the spring planting. So that's good news. That means spring is coming. But they're starting early, so they'll have it in front of us early so that we can get a good pick on a good selection of trees. So I just want to thank them for their work also.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any new business? Do we have any old business?
I have new business, Jeff. And this relates to the standing board. There should have been a point of order made because we don't have any standing boards. And I just want to express my disappointment in the fact that there have not been any assignments to these boards or committees. We ask our community members to step up. We ask them to volunteer. And to this date, this board has not even talked about it. So I really think that it's a disgrace and an embarrassment to those who serve. And we should have had those done at the beginning of the year for reorg. And now we're going to be going into what, November 8th, and we still won't have that done. So I think that just sends the wrong message to those who volunteer. So I would hope and I would expect that that should be done. Thank you.
Okay, at reorg, we actually did appoint people to our citizen boards. And
No.
we just continued. No, really, Peggy read them all into the record for us.
Sure. How about the committees? Who's on Parks and Rec? Who's on, who's on the Shade Tree Committee? Who's
They're all the same
doing?
as they were last
planning?
year until we have another discussion. They haven't changed.
Well, you say that now after the fact, and it should have been done and it should have been noted. As of now, I'm having calls from members of the community, members of some of these boards that want to know who's on it and who they can contact with questions.
So
The same
that
as
has
it was
not,
last year.
well, that has not been, it has not been relayed to them.
So Sean, just for clarity, you are asking about what board members, commissioners are assigned to these committees. So I just reported out, I went to the library board and I went to the Shade Tree board because that's what I've been on. And per Jack, I'm just continuing on. So those
Yes,
committees
and
are covered.
yes, and I've been to Parks and Rec too, although I'm not formally on it. Every year, no, every year, Jack, at reorg, we've put people back on different boards. I've not received any kind of correspondence stating what boards or committees I'm on. So if you want to reshare that with me, I would love to see it. But
Okay.
I've not been formally sent anything.
Okay. I don't know what formally sent means, but okay.
Formally sent means from your email that these are the new committees and these are the new boards. So who's leading planning?
So Sean, I don't know off the top of my head.
There you go.
There's no commissioner that sits on planning.
Not planning, pardon me, community development.
Well, as of right now, Commissioner Booker.
I am on
Commissioner
Community
Booker.
Development and it's chaired by Commissioner Booker.
I know
So
that it's
we
chair-
did not
I-
have any changes to the Board of Commissioners during this new session. So unless somebody spoke up to seek a different seat or not want to serve where they have been serving, it carried over. There's been no change to the board.
Well, I
Yeah.
have not received anything stating that, and I've not received the new committee. The new committees or the new boards. I've not received.
They're not
anything.
new committees.
Well, I haven't received anything, nor have members of the public and these volunteers received anything, so.
Okay. Moving on to item 7, public participation. Do we have any public participation? Seeing none, I will move for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to the conditional use hearing, which is listed as item 9 in our agenda. The application of GPX Ithan Development LLC seeking approval of a plan with 9 lots on the premises. The property is approximately 6.946 acres and is in the R2 Density Modification District and consists of Delaware County folios number 36-04-02700-03 and number 36-04-02700-51, number 36-04-02220-79, and number 36-04-02344-00. Solicitor Rice, you have the ball.
Thank you, Commissioner Larkin. We put a little bit of information on the background. We do have our court reporter, Norma Garrity, online here, so she will be keeping the making the record for this hearing. Two things: the application and this particular property, some of the background involving this proposed conditional use. This is this particular lot that's proposed to be subdivided as part of a subdivision that was approved in the mid-'80s called Trianon. This particular property was where the mansion was sited at the time, along with some substantial improvements, I think an adjacent carriage house. And it burned in 2012. There was a major fire there. There was a major fire investigation. There was a major lawsuit between the owner and the potential owner, who happened to be a Canadian citizen. So the property sat for a long time, and the township got involved probably about 2016 as a result of the neighbors' concerns, because it was a shell. It was a property maintenance problem, and we ended up filing a lawsuit to get the property raised, which it was, and then was sold. And now we have the new property owner, GPX Ithan Development, and they're proposing to develop this lot as a density modification development. Back when the original 1984 subdivision plan was approved, it was approved by density modification, but at that time it was permitted by right. Subsequent to that, the board amended the ordinance in the early 90s and required density modification to be done by conditional use. Hence, that's why they're back in front of this board for a hearing. As this board is aware, and just for the public's information, a conditional use hearing is a quasi-judicial proceeding. The board sits as judges, much like a zoning hearing board would sit, and hears sworn testimony and evidence. And at the end of the sworn testimony and evidence, the board is required to render a written decision within 45 days from the conclusion of the taking of testimony. So tonight is the first hearing on this. I know the applicant is here. Let me just procedurally provide some additional information. The applicant will proceed with calling its witnesses and presenting testimony. If there's anyone else who is present on this call that has an interest in becoming a party to this proceeding, and it is a quasi judicial proceeding, if there's anyone interested in becoming a party, you'll need to raise your hand. But let me first explain what becoming a party means. Becoming a party to a conditional use hearing means that you have the right to essentially cross-examine the applicant's witnesses. You have the right to present your own testimony and evidence. And you also have the right to file an appeal if you disagree with whatever the board's ultimate decision is. If you are interested in the application and do not want to become a party, there will be a public comment period at the end of the receipt of all the testimony and evidence for public comment. But as the board knows, these are fairly well-known procedures that are governed by the municipality's planning code and the township zoning ordinance. This is not a land development subdivision review hearing. That will come later if this application is approved. If this application is approved, it would then proceed to the Township Planning Commission and then the County Planning Commission and ultimately back to the Board of Commissioners for a final decision on the land development application. So tonight is just about the use. Is this an appropriate use for this particular piece of property? And does it meet the requirements of the density modification provisions of the township zoning ordinance? So with that, before I turn this over to the applicant, does the board have any questions about any aspect of this before we proceed? And is there anyone in the public that wishes to become a party? You'll have to raise your hand if so. I don't see anyone raising their hand. Ian, if you do, let us know, but I don't see anybody at this point. So with that, Mr. Cornelia, are you ready to proceed with your first witness?
We are, John. Thank you.
Sorry, Nick, just one thing. John, can you just sort of for the record mention how this was advertised
Yes.
so that the public would know?
Yes.
Thank you.
The application that came into the township was advertised January 11th and January 18th for the hearing tonight. It's required under the MPC to be advertised twice. It was done in the Delco Times. It's also been posted on the township's website, along with instructions on how to participate. Other than that, there's no other special notification required under the zoning ordinance or the MPC. If there are additional parties, they would get additional notice if there's more than one night of testimony. So and I believe this has been in front of the Planning Commission, who's made a recommendation, but we'll hear about that later, I assume, from Mr. Cornelia. So with that, Mr. Cornelia, do you want to, let's call your first witness and have the person sworn in? Lisa,
Sure, John.
Can I just add one thing? So just to let everybody know, so this is in my ward, and I've noticed this on my Facebook page, as well as in my newsletter that goes out to almost 600 residents over the weekend with the links and everything for everyone to either sign up or notify if they were interested in becoming a party. We've also had a meeting about this particular project with the neighbors as well.
I also added it to my newsletter, so it has gotten out there. I just want that to be known.
Commissioner Boraski, this is in my word as well. So I did advertise this via email, via my social media. And then I also put this on a neighbor's, third-party neighbors page called nextdoor.com. So the reach for me is probably in the thousands. More than a couple hundred.
Anything else, board, on this? Okay, Mr. Cornelia?
Thank you,
You're
John.
fine.
Sir, will you make those notices part of the record, please? Advertising notices?
Yes, yeah, the proofs of publication are on file at the township office. And I mean, I have some board exhibits which I'll mark, and why don't we just mark the legal notices as B1? And also I received a letter dated January 22nd, 2021. Was sent to the Board of Commissioners from Michelle Hunn, Hunn, who is the Trianon Homeowners Association, in support of the application. And I'm going to mark that as B2. And that letter, as I said, is dated January 22nd, 2021. Okay.
Thank you. And I have submitted to the township exhibits A1 through A6, and at the conclusion, I would request that they be made part of the record as well. Just so the board knows, the witnesses this evening are the project engineer, the civil engineer, Dave Fiorello. Eric Hetzel will testify regarding economic impact, Frank Tavani regarding traffic, and Joe Conwell, representative of the developer GPX, will also be giving testimony as well. So the first witness would be Frank, and that's Frank Tavani, Tavani, Norma.
Very good. Mr. Tavani, if you'll raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm this testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, and state your name.
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry. Let's go with Dave first. Dave will go through the whole project. I'm sorry. My bad. That's Dave Fiorello. Let's call him first, Norma. I'm sorry.
Okay. And sir, if you'll raise your right hand, you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. You're on mute. I can't hear you. Is it me? I don't hear anything.
Dave?
Yeah, I don't hear anything either.
Yeah, he's on mute. You're on mute. Are you there?
He's still muted.
Are you there now? I think you're off mute. Oh, nothing.
Hear me?
I just texted him. Oh,
He's off now, I think.
You have to speak up, Dave. I've got a new window here. I don't know if it's the microphone or not.
We can
Okay.
hear you.
We're
Yeah,
good.
just move really close to the computer and the mic because you're very faint.
All
And
right.
I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. And state your name, please.
David Fiorello, that's F as in Frank, Iorello.
Thank you.
Ian, do you want to give control to Dave on this? The first exhibit, I was just going to call up A3, which kind of is an overview.
Nick, I don't have them on my computer now. I thought you were going to.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Nick,
perhaps.
I can share on my screen if that would help.
That would be, yeah.
If you share with me, I may be able to do it too also, Ian.
You have ability to share screen if you'd like to do it that way.
Okay. Let me see if I can do it first. Can you see that?
No.
No, oh, that's not good.
Let's have Ian put it up on the screen since he has all the exhibits. Ian, if you can do it, let's do it.
Go ahead, Ian. A3,
A3, the plan.
the plan. Dave, are you a registered Pennsylvania engineer?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been a registered Pennsylvania engineer?
Too long, since 1978.
And you've been practicing actually in Radnor Township for probably that whole period of time.
Most of that time, primarily since 1991.
And you've been qualified previously as an expert in civil engineering,
Yes, I have.
and you've been actually been qualified before this board and other boards of the township as an expert in civil engineering.
That is correct.
I would like to present Dave Fiorello as an expert in civil engineering.
Okay, I think the board is familiar with Mr. Fiorello, so he will be accepted as an expert.
Dave, and you are the project engineer for this project,
Yes, I am.
and you have reviewed our application, which I have marked as A1.
Yes, I have.
And included in that application as Exhibit B is the prior resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Radnor 84-47 that permitted this density modification development.
Yes, that was in 1984 when the project was first started.
And does this A3, the outline in blue, does that represent the whole project that was approved by the Board of Commissioners at that time?
Yes, it does.
And this proposal that you see outlined in red, that is part of the previously approved resolution.
Yes, it is.
And as John described earlier, did John Rice accurately represent what occurred on this site regarding the fire and the mansion being burned down?
Yes, I believe so.
And outside of that mansion, was there any other the mansion and the accessory structures, was there any other development on this particular site?
No, other than just the mansion and the structures that were associated with it.
And actually,
Okay, just come closer to the mic. I'm having a little trouble, Mr. Fiorello.
I basically said that just the mansion and the accessory structures that were associated with it were just part of this property.
and you provided the various exhibits that were part of the application, including the generalized site plan, grading plan, planning plan, all is required by the code itself.
Yes, I did.
I've marked as A2, and Ian, I don't think we need to call it up unless you want to. Go ahead. Maybe you want to bring it up. A2, now this is the recorded site plan from the county, Dave?
That was the recorded record plan, yes, Nick.
All right, and this is the recorded plan of that resolution 84-47?
Yes,
And what's the total acreage for this site?
just shy of the whole site.
The whole
I believe
site.
it was 30 acres. Our site is just shy of 7 acres.
And our site, as you said, was part of that 38 acres.
Yes.
And how much open space is being provided?
Well, there was 15% open space provided as part of the original subdivision. So that is still being maintained as part of this application.
And is that going to be maintained by the homeowners association?
Yes,
And this development is going to be part of that homeowners association.
correct, yes.
Based on the area and the open space provided, the prior approved plan, how many dwelling units did it permit?
I believe the number was,
Would it be 86?
yeah, it was in the 86, sounds right, yes.
And to date, 57 dwelling units are on the site,
Correct, yes,
and we're proposing 9 more dwelling units.
that is correct.
And is that it for the development on this site after this?
The rest of the site, Nick, is open space to my knowledge, and there's no room for any other development. So that would be the limit.
The setbacks on the previously approved plan, are they going to be the same setbacks that we're honoring with this new development?
Yes, they haven't changed since the original subdivision plan was approved.
And actually, the zoning code has not changed either
Right.
as to those
That
requirements,
is
have it,
correct.
has it?
The density modification portion, yes.
All right. Referring back to A3. And actually, A3 is the subdivision plan, is that right?
The sheet that you're looking at, A3, shows the subdivision bounded by the red line. So yes, that is the subdivision.
Okay, and this is showing the 9 lots?
Yes,
And how is it being serviced from an ingress and egress standpoint?
we have a new cul-de-sac roadway coming in off of South Iceland Avenue. That new cul-de-sac roadway provides the sole access to those 7 lots, or I'm sorry, 9 lots.
And does the size of each lot comply with the density modification provisions of the code?
Yes, it does.
And is there any other ability to egress any of these lots onto the local streets outside of the cul-de-sac onto Iceland Avenue?
The intent is just to have the cul-de-sac as the sole access for those lots.
Ian, if you can go to sheet 3 of that plan, please. Dave, that green area, the area of proposed subdivision, you tell the board what that represents?
That is the area of the just slightly shy of 7 acres that we're proposing as part of this application. That was part of the lots that we've been speaking of tonight.
And that would be, as shown on the plan, lot 1, 52, 57, and 58?
That is correct, of the original subdivision.
As we mentioned, currently that entire site's undeveloped.
Currently, yes.
Referring to page 6 of that plan, or sheet 6 in, which is development plan. Now, Dave, if you can just, this is development plan. Can you just describe to the board briefly what this represents?
This represents the layouts of the lots being proposed. You can see the new cul-de-sac roadway, which is sort of highlighted, shaded in a very light blue area. The intent is to show possible layouts of houses on there. So they're shown with the new roadway, the 9 lots, how the houses would be oriented on those lots.
And this is being developed under the Planned Community Act?
Yes,
And it complies with all the zoning requirements of the density modification provisions of the Radnor Code under the Planned Community Act?
it's yes, it does.
And the setbacks we're maintaining are the same setbacks that were approved previously back in 1984?
Yes,
All the homes being proposed are single-family dwellings?
yes, they are.
And actually, all the homes in the whole Trianon site are single-family dwellings, is that right?
Yes,
Does it comply with all the impervious requirements of the zoning code?
yes, it does.
And this particular map, what's going to be, we are going to comply with the maximum building height as provided in the code?
That is correct.
And this particular plan that we're looking at, does it indicate the bulk and the location of the dwellings?
Shows yes, it does.
And how will vehicles be parked?
They're all single family homes. The houses will have at least 2, possibly 3 garages. All parking will be off street. You can see the driveways and the apron areas proposed where the garages would be. So it would be all off street parking.
And when you say 2 or 3 garages, you mean 2 or 3 parking spots in each garage?
Yes, correct, bays of the
Okay.
garage.
As to the cul-de-sac, was that cul-de-sac actually relocated after discussions with the township and some neighbors?
Yes, our original plans had the entrance to the cul-de-sac sort of shifted to what's shown on here is the arrow to the west, or further down closer to Conestoga Road.
Does it meet all the site distance requirements of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation?
Yes, it exceeds all the minimum site distance requirements.
And is the site being served by public water and public sewer?
There is public sewer that traverses the site. Our proposals connect to the public sewer for all the homes. Public water is available in Eichen Avenue. We have a letter from Aqua Pennsylvania certifiers saying that they have service available. So yes, the intent is to have public water and public sewer for all the lots.
How about electrical and those type of utilities? How are they being provided?
They will be brought into each lot. The intent is to have all the utilities underground. They'll be located within the right of way of the road, and then service available to all the lots from that main trunk line coming in.
Has a planning plan been proposed?
Yes, there is a landscape plan that was prepared by Jonathan Alderson Landscape Architects.
And I believe, Ian, that is either page 5 or I think it's L001 and L101. We got it there? If you can describe it, Dave, or this is the existing site?
This is the existing site. I think, Ian, it's probably the last sheets in that set. Here we go. This plan shows the existing trees on the site and the highlighted ones that would be removed. And the next sheet in is the proposed landscape plan for the site.
Can you describe the landscape plan, basically on the aspect of it?
The intent is to try to maintain as many of the perimeter plantings as we can, but there's a significant number of plantings being proposed around the perimeter of the site, within the lots themselves, and then street trees along the roadway.
And actually, it looks like there's a significant number of trees between this development and the other Trianon homes. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Attached as A4 was the stormwater management analysis. And was that prepared by Shock Group, your current company?
Yes.
And if you could tell the board how stormwater will be managed?
The intent is to have, maybe, and we can go back to the site plan, because I think sheet 5 or 6, maybe. I think sheet 6 shows that one there. You can see on the lots, we have areas within the front yards of each lot. We're proposing a number of on-site stormwater management, retention, and recharge systems on each lot. Those lots would then discharge to another common system down within lot 1 that runs along Eichen Avenue. That is another combination recharge rate control system, excuse me, that would collect the runoff from all those lots. Again, provide groundwater recharge and rate control, and then discharge to the existing storm sewer in Eichen Avenue.
Are street lights being proposed?
The plan shows are a little bit difficult to see, but we're showing street lights on there. They're black dots with yellow highlights around it. So yes, we are proposing street lights.
And this is really basically the improvements for this site, the public improvements will be done before any homes are constructed?
I'm sorry, Nick, say that again.
Will the public improvements be performed before any homes are constructed on the
Yes,
site?
that would be a requirement. There's a lot of grade work that's required for the roadway. Is intent to have the roadway installed, have the site graded, have the utilities installed so that the houses could then be constructed as they're sold.
Are there any historic or archaeological resources on the site?
None to my knowledge.
Any floodplains or wetlands?
No.
Any adverse impact of this proposal on natural features?
I don't envision any.
Is it compatible with the environment and natural resources of this site?
I believe it is, yes.
And as to recreation, the developer will provide the fee in lieu of the recreation space as required under the code.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Does the plan provide any detrimental impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding community greater than a similar development?
In my opinion, no.
That's all I have at this time. Thank you, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Okay, does the board have any questions for the witness?
Can I get the tiles with the faces? There we go.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Fiorello?
Some questions.
Well, if not, Mr. Fiorello, just a couple.
No, I have some questions there. I have some questions.
Oh. Go ahead, Mr. Booker, Commissioner Booker.
I'm looking at the comments to the subdivision from staff. Every lot shall have a lot area of not less than 20,000 square feet and 100 feet in width at the building line. There are proposed lots where the minimum lot is not met. So what's your response to that?
My response to that is the conventional R2 zoning. We're applying for density modification, and the minimum lot areas and setbacks that you mentioned are not part of the density modification provisions.
My understanding is that this doesn't meet the requirements for a density modification. It's not big enough, right?
Part of the original plan, Mr. Booker. This is still under the Planned Community Act, which is the successor in interest. That is why the density modification setback requirements are applicable.
Well, I guess I'd like for you to elaborate more on that, because the way I look at it, in 1984, this development had a mansion at the middle of the site, and it got a density modification based on leaving that 6-acre parcel, basically a historic home and a parkland area in the middle of the development. And now we're going to just develop that as if it never existed. In 1984, that wasn't what the DM was based on. It was based on leaving that area open in the middle. So I'm not sure that I understand how the original 1984 density modification applies to this new area in the center.
That's not accurate as to the development of lot 58, which is where the mansion was. The approval there had nothing to do with preserving that site. Matter of fact, as we mentioned during our testimony, the approval allowed for 86 dwelling units. And to date, much less than that have been provided, and these 9 will still be much less than that. There was nothing in any of the approvals, any of the resolutions, any of the plans that said lot 58, which was the mansion site, has to be preserved.
I understand that, but I think it's impossible to say that had you proposed 9 additional homes in lot 58 in 1984, that the same approvals would have been granted at that time.
It's, as I mentioned, the number of allowed units were 80-some units. We're still well below that. This plan was approved as a density modification back at that time, the 30-some acres. This was part of that density modification plan. And now that we are just proceeding with developing that portion of the site.
If there was not a density modification provided for on this 6-acre parcel, what would, or how many new houses would it support in the area without a density modification?
I don't know the answer to that.
Without density modification, you have 20,000 square foot lot minimum requirement. That's roughly half an acre. There's 7 acres, just shy of 7 acres associated with this site. So, you know, if you worked out the numbers, you'd probably be on the order of maybe 13 lots.
Well, but you would have to exclude rights of way, setbacks, et cetera. Aren't the setbacks here with the density modification less than they would be otherwise for R2?
Yes, they are.
So it wouldn't be 13 or 14, it would be something less than that. And I'm trying to get to, is it less than 9, or do you have any sketch of what it would be if there was no density modification? So in light of that, then, Attorney Cornelia, why would the developer choose to only build 9 houses when they could build 14 without going for a density modification?
Because this is going to be a quality development. He feels that 9 homes are appropriate for this site. He has proceeded to the homeowners association on numerous occasions and the neighbors, and they all are in agreement with this development and these 9 lots.
Well, with all due respect, I think that that's avoiding the answer. I think that any developer would say that they could build 14 quality homes just as well as 9. I find it incredulous that the developer would rather build 9 instead of 14.
Commissioner Booker, Booker, you have any questions about the testimony?
Well, the testimony relates to the explanation of the development. So I'm reviewing the development in light of the testimony and the documentation provided.
Well, let me address a couple of your comments. I looked to see whether or not, when this plan was approved, whether that mansion lot was restricted in some way from further subdivision, and it was not restricted. So I agree, that was part of that plan. It's a large lot. It was a huge mansion. I've been on the property after the fire, and there were formal gardens. There was a large pool. There was probably maybe still standing, the carriage house that was attached to the mansion. So, and I thought maybe it would have been restricted, but there's nothing on the plans. There was nothing in the approval resolution. So this is a further subdivision, you know, under the DM provisions, which now require conditional use. Back then, you didn't have to go through conditional use. The board changed the zoning ordinance in the early 90s to require conditional use for any further density modification plans.
I understand. I understand. And again, notwithstanding the lack of a specific requirement for maintaining the mansion, seems to me that the review would have taken a different course had what's proposed now been proposed at the original. So I have trouble accepting that all this would have been approved in exactly the same manner without the lot 58 maintaining the original mansion.
Right.
That's my view.
What's in front?
There's also an issue of steep slopes on this, and I see on the topographic lines that there are some steep slopes along the left side of the new development. I guess that's the west side. And last I heard, it said further documentation was being pursued. And as you all both, as you know, it's not man-made slopes, it's slopes that were created in accordance with the development ordinance, the steep slope requirements of our saldo. So do we know that are we disturbing steep slopes, or have we documented that this was done in the past in conformity with and under a permit under our current requirements?
We'll have to comply with whatever steep slope requirements there are and whatever is determined to be steep slopes in that area. Certainly, much if not all of that is pursuant to valid issued permits, well subsequent to the approval of this site. And as I mentioned, we'll have to comply with it.
So I'll take that as we haven't documented that. Can you talk about the sidewalks that'll be in the area along the cul-de-sac and where they connect to on Ithan?
We have proposed, and Dave, you can answer this, you know, you can probably further talk about it. We can provide sidewalks as required under the land development ordinance on this site. There has been discussion with neighbors that they prefer that we extend the sidewalk on the east side of Ithan Avenue, down Ithan Avenue, rather than install the sidewalks along the development. So we are proposing that. We are looking at that. We're working with the township on that. And that's really a land development issue.
Well, I think it's important because my view is, and I think many would concur, we have a significant issue with neighbors and people who like to walk in the streets. And without sidewalks, we have a condition where bikes, especially vehicles, and people walking and running and walking their dogs, et cetera, in the streets is quite commonplace. And I'm concerned that we're making, and that I'm concerned with the safety aspects of that. And I think that this exacerbates that existing issue without a sidewalk along the new cul-de-sac road.
Well, as we mentioned, we can provide the sidewalks along the new cul-de-sac, or we can provide them opposite on Ithan Avenue, which seems to be the desire of the neighbors and that we've been able to determine.
I understand that, but again, I think the neighbors they think it'll be okay to walk in the streets, and I think that that's not a safe condition in these new developments where we have an opportunity. We shouldn't have people walking in the streets. Also, I'm looking at Steve's comments, and it talks about the conditioners may require additional rights of way and setback. Let's see, hold on. What was the language there about?
Again, that's a land development and subdivision issue. It's not a density modification issue. It's in our land development code. As Mr. Rice stated from the very beginning, this is not a land development review. This is a review under conditional use under the zoning code.
Understood, but it says, with the Board of Commissioners may require the reservation of dedication of rights of way to conform with the required standards. Why wouldn't we show that right now? How are we going to, I understand that it's a land development item, but we're talking about pretty clear approval at this point for it. Why not show it right now so we know that it's not an issue that we can't comply with?
The rights of way that are shown on the plan, Mr. Booker, are the rights of way that are required by the ordinance. We have the right of way for the cul-de-sac at 60 feet, which is required by the ordinance, and the right of way along Ithan Avenue is the right of way that's required by the ordinance. There was additional right of way dedicated back in '84 when the project was originally approved. So the rights of way meet the township standards for the road criteria.
But that would not be the case if we were developing under R2 without the DM, correct?
No, that's not correct. The rights of way for the road are the same rights of way regardless of whether it's DM or conventional.
So why did we have the note?
I don't know.
So
So
Commissioner,
why did Steve put that in there?
Commissioner Booker, with regarding sidewalks along here, you know, you have two options on right now. Or along the front side or on the other side of.
John, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, let me start again. I'm getting some static too, which is unusual. But the issue with sidewalks, you know, is, I mean, it's appropriate for conditional use to at least have some sense of where sidewalks are appropriate for ingress and egress. But you have two options: along the frontage of the site or across the street where Agnes Irwin is, along the frontage of those existing homes. So there are issues a board can discuss before you come to any kind of a conclusion on the conditional use. It's still going to be a land development issue, but you can certainly discuss as part of your conditional use deliberation. If you go across the street, you're dealing with existing homeowners. So that all has to be taken into consideration. The board wants to attach a condition. The board will approve it.
Understood, and I think that it's an easier lift to be talking about sidewalks on the new portion that's being developed rather than under the old section. And,
Yeah.
and even if it's not, I think it's still appropriate to have them.
May I comment on this since it is my ward and I've been dealing with these sidewalk issues since day one? And perhaps I can shed a little light on this situation.
Well,
So-
Lisa, let me go ahead and finish. Let me go finish this and then you can respond.
Well, let's go back to the hearing.
This has to be a hearing with questions,
Yes.
cross-examining the witnesses, not testifying ourselves, please.
Commissioner Booker, let's finish with your questions of the witness and see if anybody else on the board has questions for the witnesses so that we can move on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said that I'd like to do. So,
Go ahead.
As far as the right of way provisions, again, I note that the township engineer specifically called out the issue that additional right of way to reduce congestion are the prerogative of the Board of Commissioners. And I wanted to understand the origin of that note and how that relates to this development. If it's not a requirement under R2 and it's not a requirement under the 1984 density modification, then why would we bring it up? It seems to me that there must be something that's misunderstood here, that it should apply.
Can you answer that, Mr. Fiorello, that question?
As I had mentioned before, the right of way that we're providing for the roadway, for the new roadway, meets the township requirements for right of way. So we're not by any means diminishing right of way. The township always has the provision to request additional right of way above and beyond, but in this case, there's no widening proposed for Eichen Avenue. The right of way proposed for the new roadway is the township standard of 60 feet. So I really don't know if there are any issues. In my mind, there are no issues that would require any additional right of way.
Okay. Can you discuss how the 15% green space was calculated under the 1984 DM and how it relates to the lot 58 in 1984 versus lot 58 redevelopment now in the 15%? How can the 15% in 84 be consistent with this when lot 58 is being totally developed? So explain how you calculated the 15% and how that worked in 84 and how that's working today.
since I did not do it in 1984, I can go back to the plan and sort of explain my understanding of what was done.
Please.
The 15% was based on the requirement of the 30 acres of the 38 acres, whatever it was for the entire Trinon subdivision. So that 15% was set aside. Lot 58 was not open space. So the open space that was set aside was based on the overall development. So that open space was set aside at that time, and there's no requirements for any additional right-of-way or open space at this time.
So it sounds like you're saying that in 1984, the 15% open space excluded lot 58. There was
No, it did
15% plus lot 40.
I'm going to
lot
object
58.
for a minute. That's not what he testified to.
Okay, so what did he testify to, Attorney Cornelia?
He testified to what he said. You want to read it back, Norma?
I can't read
Rich, you
all
heard him.
that.
Let's, Commissioner Walker,
So I think the answer is evasive. So how is the 15% calculated with respect to this new development? It's 15% on this section only, correct?
No, it's 15% of the overall Trinon site. This is part of that Trinon site.
15% still the same. There's no addition.
John, I'm sorry, you keep fading out. I can't hear you.
I can't hear you either.
Oh, boy. Okay. Let me see if I can.
That's good.
That sounds better.
All right. Go ahead, Commissioner Booker.
So again,
My point was 15 hasn't changed.
How do we
It
do
hasn't-
15% then versus now? It's the
It
same
hasn't changed.
calculation?
It's the same 15% of the original tract. If you read the ordinance, it says 50% of the total tract. That hasn't changed. No part of that lot 58 was part of the 15%. Any more questions for?
Right, so today, there's no new, so why wouldn't we take 15% of lot 58 and reserve that as open space?
Lot 58 was never open space. And the open space that was required was already set aside.
Well, this is a new approval though, so why wouldn't we talk about 15% in this new development? This new 6 acres?
Answer.
I'm sorry?
You don't have to answer.
Would you care to answer, Nick?
We already answered it, Rich.
Forgive me, could you answer it again for me?
No.
So I guess, so your answer is you are not proposing any additional open space.
That is correct.
So so the new development that you're asking for density modification, you're saying will have no new open space, and that you don't believe any new open space is required for these 9 homes.
That is correct. It's already provided in the original 38-acre development of which this is part.
Well, again, this is a new development, so I would look at it differently. That's all I have.
Any other commissioner questions?
So I would just like to ask Mr. Fiorello, thank you very much for your testimony this evening. I appreciate it. So there's, some concerns around, we get some significant flooding over there on that street on South Ipen. And there's a creek that runs underneath South Ipen that does flood as well. And I'm just wondering if you could detail for us a little bit more about the stormwater mitigation that will be on this property, since this will be a considerable amount of impervious surface or pervious surface added to the area.
We're looking at the site as if there were no impervious surface on there at all at the beginning from now. So we're looking at the site in terms of meadow conditions. So we're ignoring the amount of runoff that's coming off and providing stormwater management in accordance with the township ordinances, as if the site were totally meadow. So as I mentioned before, the intent is to provide a series of subsurface stormwater beds throughout the site, one on each lot, that would collect water runoff from the houses and the driveways and whatever into those systems. Those systems then would then discharge into a stormwater system in the street, in the new cul-de-sac, which then would convey it to a larger stormwater management system that's part of Lot 1, which would provide additional groundwater recharge and additional rate control for the lots and for the new roadway, so that the stormwater discharges would then go into the storm sewer system. Our numbers, our design would be worked out so that we don't exceed the capacity of the systems now. We've done preliminary analysis based on soil conditions and soil borings, but our final design would get into all those details when we get into final land development.
And then my only other question, and if this isn't an appropriate question, someone can certainly let me know. And I don't know who would be best to answer it, but could you please detail the work that you did do with the neighbors within Trianon in order to first, bring this property to their attention and work with them around this?
Actually, Joe Conwell was going to testify to that.
Okay.
If,
Okay, great. Thank
you. As to what occurred.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Brass, are you finished?
I am finished. Thank
Okay.
you. Commissioner Parker.
So I have a couple questions. I guess there was a lot of damage when this place burned down, and it's been pretty much shuttered for the past 12 years. So when you demolish it, you're going to have trash, I don't know, carcinogens, for lack of a better term, go through the stream, which eventually hits Clemacrone Park. Can you tell me how you're going to clean up that area to make sure that we don't have any, the stream has been pretty much deemed almost dead. We did there's a report back in 2018 about that. What's the protocol, and what are you going to do to make sure that that it's not going to get, that stream's not going to get polluted or contaminated anymore?
Well, at this point in time, most of that damage has been removed. There has been a lot of demolition work already done. So the only thing left on the site now is pretty much the driveway and remnants of the one of the outbuildings. So a lot of that demolition work will be done. We will have to go through the process of getting NPDES permits for work during construction. We have to provide our proposal for groundwater recharge is putting a lot of that water from our development back into the ground. But again, a lot of the demolition and site work has already been accomplished, and a lot of the site has been restored already.
Okay. Also, the soil there. This is because the more we build, the more we have flooding. Is this area in a floodplain?
No, it is not.
Okay, and how's the soil there? Does it perk well, or is it?
Preliminary analysis shows that we have the soils are good permeable soils. As part of our final design, we'll be doing detailed percolation tests at the locations of all the proposed systems. But initial analysis shows that the soils are satisfactory for both groundwater recharge and stormwater control.
Okay, satisfactory for also for that, and it still will remain satisfactory for 9 new homes and all the permeable permeability you'll be putting in, correct?
Yes, that's the intent.
Okay, and then when we talk about schools, or John, this is for you, John Rice. When we talk about schools and the makeup of the community, do I talk to him about that, or do I talk to somebody else? Because
Mr. Farr, we do have another witness on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Fiorello? Okay, Mr. Fiorello, thank you. Mr. Cornelia, you have another witness?
Yes, why don't we call Joe now, Joe Conwell, since Commissioner Borowski asked about discussions with the neighbors.
Okay, let's have Mr. Conwell sworn in, please.
Mr. Conwell, if you'll raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name for the record, please.
Joseph Conwell, Conwell.
Joe, what is your position with GPX Realty?
My position is managing director.
We have already marked as Exhibit A of A1 the deed. And did GPX purchase this property in February of 2020?
Yes, we did.
Since the purchase of the property, could you describe the process that GPX went through with the surrounding neighbors as well as the homeowners association?
Yeah, we initially met with the board of the homeowners association prior to acquiring the property, about a month prior. And then in the subsequent months between February and October, we worked with them continually to get their input on what they wanted to see in the development, what their priorities were, what the best way to design it would be. And we also worked with them in detail on revising the documentation as necessary of the homeowners declaration and bylaws, because we are a part of Trianon, and the land is all subject to their declaration and bylaws. So we needed to, and we needed a 67% vote of the membership, to move forward at all with this development. So that was our first step.
And how did you proceed after that? So was the homeowners declaration actually amended?
Well, it was the changes were agreed to and voted upon by the members. It hasn't been recorded yet. It hasn't been reviewed by the township.
And that document actually indicates this proposed plan and the approval of the homeowners for that proposed plan.
Yeah, yes, it does. The vote was on the plan. The declaration requires that in order to make a change to the record plan, you have to have they had to have the vote. So we provided thorough information packages to the homeowners. We set up Zoom meetings on 3 different evenings for the homeowners in the 10 days prior to the vote. We had very good attendance in those meetings, and there was a lot of discussion about it.
And what was the vote?
Well, with the vote, we had 52. It's a 61 member community. 52 of the members voted, and all 52 voted for in support. There were no votes against.
Now, we have referred to this declaration, and I've marked that as A5. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Is that the declaration?
Yes. Well, I know I provided the declaration, so I assume it's A5. I don't see it in front of me, but.
There you go.
Yes, this is the second amended and restated declaration. Yes.
And that declaration, who's maintaining the open space in that declaration?
The Homeowners Association of Trina.
And you're part, this development will be part of
Yes.
that homeowners association.
We're part of it, and essentially what they did was created a separate class of lots for our 9 lots, because we are going to have we've got slightly different architectural guidelines because our houses are being built 35 years later, and we also have got different fee and assessment percentages. Our homeowners, as an example, will be paying a capital contribution upfront, and not only in the initial sale, but at any sale of one of the homes, there will be a capital contribution. And that's not something that the original homeowners pay. And we are also paying 100% of the cost of any new maintenance costs that come as a part of our development. There is a significant landscape buffer that we're proposing to build that will be maintained by the association, and the cost of that maintenance, which it's a landscape buffer of about 600 linear feet. That will have, I'm not sure how many trees, but a lot. So the maintenance of that will be, as an example, will be paid for by the new home. So all of those, fitting that into the declaration required, and revisions and modifications of the document, but it was all done and voted upon.
And was all this determined and voted upon and decided prior to GPX making any submittal to the township?
Yes, it was. We got the approval of the homeowners association before filing our application with the township.
So the homeowners association had significant input in what the plan was going to look like.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they absolutely had significant input into it.
Ian, if you can bring up A7, Joe, I'm going to show you A7. Can you describe, that's the conceptual, I think. Do we have that? There you go.
A6?
A6, I'm sorry, A6. Joe, can you describe that?
Yeah, this is a representative example of a home that we are considering. It's being shown just to sort of paint a picture. And as I said, it's a representative example. We haven't committed to this particular home, but it's the type of home. It represents the level of the look and feel and level of quality that we intend to deliver. And the other thing about this home that makes it appropriate to, as a representative example, is that we expect that multiple of the homes in the development will be courtyard design homes like this, where the garages share a courtyard with the front door of the house, the entry of the house.
And Joe, finally, John Rice presented as B2 a letter from Michelle Hun, who's president of the Homeowners Association. Do you have that letter in front of you? Do you want to read that into the record?
Actually, I would like to read that into the record, and if you will,
Ian, if you can, that was B2, I think. I don't know if you have it there. I don't know if he has it.
I don't know if you don't have it.
I have it.
I think I do here, and I would.
Why don't you just read it in?
I would like to.
Like I do not have that letter.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, I have it here. This is a letter to the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners, care of John Rice, Solicitor. Dear Solicitor Rice, in advance of the conditional use hearing on Monday, January 25th, I'm writing on behalf of the members of the Tree 9 Homeowners Association to reiterate our support for the GPX plan to develop 9 new homes in our community. The development of this site is very important to the Tree 9 homeowners who have endured almost a decade of uncertainty and unsafe, neglected property in the center of our community. Over several months, we worked closely in a give and take process with GPX that produced this plan. Safety, traffic, privacy, and property values in our community were carefully considered, and appropriate provisions have been incorporated into the plans. Additionally, our HOA council worked with GPX to modify the homeowner association's declaration and bylaws as necessary with respect to architectural guidelines, common area maintenance, annual fee and assessment allocations, etc. A comprehensive information package of the plan was and proposed document changes were sent to each homeowner prior to the October 22nd special meeting held by the association to vote on the GPX plan. Subsequently, our member homeowners voted overwhelmingly in favor of the GPX development with no votes against it. The vote result clearly shows the importance of the development to our members. As the township approval process proceeds, we want to be sure that the support of our homeowners is on the record. Thank you for your consideration of the Trianon homeowners. And please feel free to contact me if you would like to discuss this further. Sincerely, Michelle B. Hunn, President, Trianon Homeowners Association.
Joe, in addition to the homeowners association, do you have discussions with others as well?
Yes, at the request of township staff, we organized a Zoom meeting for the non-Trianon homeowners along Ithan Avenue and and any non-Trianon homeowners. We first focused on the Trianon homeowners because we were subject to their bylaws. So we then we had a Zoom meeting with with all non-Trianon neighbors organized by the township, and we made the same presentation to them and took their questions in the same fashion.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further for Mr. Conwell.
Any board questions for Mr. Conwell?
I have a question. But I don't want to go first every time, John, so why don't I let somebody else go first?
Anyone other than Mr. Booker have any questions?
I don't have any questions, and thank you very much for answering my prior question.
Yeah, I have a few, and I'll say that I think it's great that the homeowners are all for this, but again, this is quasi judicial. We have to act as not what the homeowners that are unanimous, but what is the best for the township. So with that being said, what I mean, it's, and I don't know if this is appropriate if I ask you, but like I'm looking at like the school situation. Do you know how Radnor Elementary, these students would go to Radnor Elementary. It's overcrowded to begin with. Do you have an estimate of how many students would be going there?
Yeah, we do. I'll present the next is Eric Hetzel did a report, Mr. Fari, and I'll present him as the next witness since you've been asking. So
yeah, I mean, because that's the stuff that I'm looking for. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess Commissioner Booker can go then. That's fine.
Anyone? Commissioner Booker? Commissioner Booker, you're on.
Thank you, Commissioner Fari. Mr. Conwell, going back to my question of Mr. Fiorello, if under existing R2 requirements, you could have built 14 homes, why didn't you pursue that and propose that to the homeowners association versus 9? What I'm trying to get at is what would be the by right without the DM, without the density modification on this 6 acres?
Right. We don't have a design of that. When we went to the homeowners, clearly their and our preference was to have a cul-de-sac street and create something that was although part of Trianon, separate and private. And in order to get 12 or 14 homes on that site, you would have had to have the entrances of those sites. You'd have to use both Ithan Avenue and Trianon Lane for access. And we didn't care to do that, so we didn't design it or pursue it.
Why didn't you care to do that?
Because we want to do a quality development, and we think that would compromise the quality significantly.
instead of a cul-de-sac having two access would compromise the quality. I don't, how would that compromise the quality? You would still build the same
Yes.
homes.
Listen, sometimes, quantity is not always the best. We have a vision for an environment that is both our vision and the vision of the residents of the community. And that's what we pursued. It's not all about density.
Okay. Well, then why not pursue 9 homes without a density modification?
Because you can only, in order to put a road in, which we think is what everybody wants and what we want, you need the density modification, because when you put the road in, you lose a 60-foot swath, which then it compresses your setbacks and all your setbacks basically with the road. So in order to do the road, we need the density modification.
So what is the significance of the road with respect to these 9 homes? Why is that important to the township that a new road be built? And as a secondary question, is this road a private road or will it be dedicated to the township to maintain?
As to the first part, he can't answer for the township. So the second part, he can answer that question.
Yeah, it'll be a dedicated road.
And so what is the benefit to having a road versus having 9 lots that would be accessed through other means in this area?
Commissioner, for one thing, the portion of Trianon Lane that would be used to access, if access of driveways were going into Trianon Lane, is a very sharply curved, bulbous roadway. And the sight distances from those curb cuts where those driveways would come in are compromised and they're not safe. That would be one example. But Commissioner, I would just tell you that in any situation, you look at a situation and say to yourself, how do we do this? And what's the best way to do it? And in our case, we decided the best way to do it was to put the road off of Ithan Avenue for multiple reasons. I've given you one example, but I really haven't given that a lot of thought. It was actually very obvious to us that this was the best way to do it, in our opinion. So that's what we're proposing. To some degree, there is a degree of preference. It's what we like, and we like it because we were committed to doing something that that reflected the priorities of the neighbors.
Seems very unusual that you would propose a plan that would require additional density modification approvals from the Board of Commissioners when you could have built one that required no additional approvals.
Well, we're willing to do what it takes to get the approvals, because we want to do what we think is the best, highest quality project.
So just so I get a sense of, and I think it's important for the public, if you did not build this road, can you give me a sense of what access to the lots would look like? It would be long driveways off of Trianon Drive. Is that what you're saying?
There would be, they wouldn't necessarily be long, but there would be multiple driveways off of Trianon Lane, and there would be 1 or 2 driveways off of Ithan that had served multiple houses, likely. But as I said, we did not design that in any detail. Conceptual only, just, doodling.
And presumably, you thought that there would be more difficulty in doing that type of a setup than this one.
No, it wasn't about difficulty. It was, we thought it was dysfunctional and not appealing, and we were trying to do something that is exceptional.
And you said again that this road will be dedicated to the township, correct?
That's our intention, yes.
Why not make this a private road?
I really can't answer that. We never considered that. I don't know. I never gave that any thought.
Well, it might be, since it is for the 9 folks on this lot. I mean, a private road, I think, is an appropriate consideration, and that would presumably lessen the burden on the taxpayers to service and maintain the area. So that is a consideration that there's no reason why this couldn't be a private lane, I guess. Could there? Is there?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the regulations are for how many houses can be accessed through a private lane, or I don't know anything about, what was involved with private lane.
Are these houses going to be the same square footage and the lot size of all the prior ones in Trinon? Are these bigger houses, bigger lots, or
Yes.
Is there any difference?
Yes, there is. That the average lot size is 3/4 of an acre, and I think that the average lot size in Trinon is more like 1/3 of an acre. The square footage of the homes that we're contemplating is in the 4,700 square foot range. I think the average lot size or house size in Trinon is in more like the 4,000 square foot range. And those statements are what I think. I mean, I haven't no, they're accurate on ours, but I'm not on the Trianon. I think it's around 4,000 square feet for their houses.
4,000 for the Trianon, and then how many for the new? This
47 or 4,800.
So maybe even
on average, some a little bigger, some a little
20%, 20% more. So the attorney Cornelia testified you could put 89 houses on here. Is that what I heard?
I don't think that was it.
You know that.
What was the number?
The prior development in 84 said that 80 some homes were allowed according to the plan.
And we said there's how many right now? 50?
It was testified to, I believe, 58 perhaps. Let me look at my notes. Mr. Fiorella testified to it. 57.
57. So if you had smaller lot sizes and smaller houses, you could, under the density modification, put more than the 9 that you're planning, even with the road.
I mean, it's logically, you would draw that conclusion, but we haven't investigated that. We haven't tried to design that. And by the way, I do not think, I will say that I not with the road. The road takes up a good bit of land. It takes up it requires a 60-foot right of way. And it is a challenging aspect of developing a site, because that site has unusual configuration. The border, it's like not a perfect rectangle. It's got angles and changes, and so it's the road is the centerpiece. It's what we need to create the environment we wanted to create. It's not an easy thing to do, and you do sacrifice some density and increase cost by putting the road in. But our feeling is that by putting the road in, you're creating a development that is self-sustaining, And that is an asset to the neighbor, to the people around it. It's an enhancement to the community, more so than the other options would have been.
How did you decide to take down the remnants of the mansion and build 9 houses instead of rebuilding another facility or another building that would have been similar to the existing? Did you look at condos like Luella in that area?
No, we didn't. I can say that when we bought the property, the mansion had already been raised. It was gone, so there was nothing on it. The owner who we bought the property from tried for a year or so, or maybe more, I'm not sure. They marketed the property as a mansion lot, and they were not able to sell it. Apparently, the market for that type of property, is not there.
But you never considered putting something that would have been, understanding that the mansion was raised, a replica or some structure that replicated the sense of the mansion that would have been maybe even multifamily. You never looked at anything like that.
We didn't know.
And was that just because that's not what you do, or you just never considered it, or you considered it and you decided it didn't work for specific reasons?
No, we didn't. We didn't think that's not what we do. It wasn't in keeping with our vision for the site.
Why not provide 15% new open space with these new houses in this new development? Notwithstanding the fact that Attorney Cornelia says you don't have to, or you already have 15%. Why not provide some more open space in this new area?
Well, we agree that we acquired land that was part of a community that had been developed under density modification, and we believe that we acquired those approvals, and we acquired a piece of land, and one of the benefits of that piece of land was that it was part of a community that had already been developed, and that certain aspects like the open space requirement were met.
Well, again, you must have not thought that was the case. Otherwise, you wouldn't be before us, that you would have just proceeded to develop without coming before us.
We did proceed to develop without coming before you, and we were then, we tried to do that, but then we were informed that we needed a conditional use approval.
And can you elaborate on why your initial thoughts were that you did not need a conditional use?
I'm going to object. This is not relevant to development. This is here before conditional use for this development. None of these questions are relevant to this development. Rich.
Attorney Cornelia, I disagree. I think it is probative of the basis upon which the action comes before us. I want to understand why it is that we're here even looking at this, if there was a by right to do it. So to do what you're asking anyway.
He explained why we're here. He explained why we're here. He said that the ordinance had changed. It provides that you have to go through the conditional use process now, where previously you did not.
The original.
And was that was not known when you purchased the property?
No, it wasn't. We didn't, we didn't make that connection that, that there was an intervening code change in 1990 that requires conditional use now. We overlooked it.
Did you discover that fact before or after talking with the homeowners association on the plans?
We discovered that fact after talking with the homeowners association on the plans.
No further questions.
Any other board questions? Mr. Conwell. Mr. Cornelia, you have one more witness?
I have Eric Hetzel, who will answer Mr. Fari's questions regarding school. And then very brief, I have Frank Tavani, because he did do a report on traffic. So I anticipate getting through these witnesses on my end aren't going to take more than 5 minutes.
Well, let me just, I was just informed that Commissioner Larkin had to get off this call. So we still have a quorum of the board on here. If you're okay as the applicant with him not sitting through the next hour of testimony, we'll all get transcripts, and
Right.
he will read those before there's any kind of a decision. So if you're okay with that, let's go with your next witness. And
That
get
is fine.
Okay.
Just one question quickly, John. So when do you anticipate a decision on this?
Well, not tonight. If the hearing is closed tonight and the testimony's done, the board will have 45 days to render a written decision. So once the hearing's closed, then I would anticipate that there'd be an executive session and a discussion with the board and myself in terms of what that decision will look like. Because I'm going to have to prepare a written decision, which majority of the board will have to support before it gets put on an agenda for a vote. So there's a 45-day window, Commissioner Booker, once the testimony is over. So there's time here. No vote tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Cornelia, proceed on.
Eric Hetzel.
Yes, I'm here.
Sir, if you'll raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
And state your full name for the record, please.
Eric Hetzel, ERIK HETZEL.
Thank you.
And Eric, what's your professional background?
I'm a professional land planner. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in Geography and Planning from Westchester University and a Master of Regional Planning from the University of Pennsylvania. I'm a certified planner by the American Institute of Certified Planners. My career as a planner spans more than 25 years. I've been qualified to appear before and testify before numerous boards and commissions regarding various work products I've done, which include fiscal impact statements, development impact statements, land use plans, comprehensive plans, ordinance amendments, and all manner of planning products.
And did you perform a fiscal impact statement for this development?
I did.
May I request that Mr. Hessel be qualified as an expert on fiscal impact analysis for this land development, please?
And Mr. Cornelia, do you have a CV for Mr. Hetzel at all?
Yes, actually attached to his report is a CV.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's fine. I think the board has all the exhibits. So Mr. Hetzel will be accepted then as a planner, correct? Expert planner.
Yes. And Eric, as you had mentioned, you had prepared a memo on this that has been marked in as part of the development impact statement, exhibit G to A1.
That is correct.
And let's skip right away, since Mr. Farr has been asking about schools. What impact do you see regarding the schools on this development? I guess in one, we would like to look at the impact, the cost impact on the schools, as well as revenues generated by this development.
The cost impact is driven primarily by the population growth associated with the new development. We're estimating that there will be 9 school-age children. That's school-age children, not necessarily all school-age kids that are attending public schools. We expect that that number of 9 is conservatively high estimate, as is the case in Radnor Township, where a certain percentage of students attend private schools. The impact that has, the proposed development is estimated to provide over $277,000 annually in revenues, which includes over $230,000 of real estate taxes based on the assessments. That results in a net fiscal positive impact. That's revenues over costs. Costs are estimated at $216,000. The net fiscal impact would be a positive $61,133.
Are there other positive fiscal impacts for the development, such as transfer taxes?
There would be transfer taxes and other non-property tax revenue streams. I've laid them out in the memo in the fiscal impact summary table on the last page. I enumerate them as they would go to the township and as they would go to the school district.
What impact would there be on public safety and similar type facilities?
It would be minimal. That's contained in the report as well, using performance standards published in the what I use is the Development Impact Assessment Handbook, which is a publication developed by Rutgers University Center for Urban Policy Research.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your voice went out for a minute. Developed by Rutgers.
The Rutgers University Center for Urban Policy Research.
Thank you.
So it would be fractional for fractional impacts for police, fire, EMS.
And would the impact on those items be any greater for this development as opposed to a similar development?
Not in my estimation.
What is on your conclusion, what's the net annual fiscal impact as a result of this development?
The net annual fiscal impact to the township is $31,284. The net impact to the Radnor Township School District is $61,133, which combines for a total net impact of $92,417 to the two taxing authorities.
That's yearly?
That's correct, annually.
Does the development have any adverse impacts from a fiscal standpoint?
None that I could estimate.
And will the economic impact be similar to a similar type development?
In my estimation, yes.
That's all I have at this time.
Okay, board questions for Mr. Hetzel.
Hold on, Commissioner Boraski, it's your ward. I'll defer to you.
I'm fine. I've read all the materials we were provided, so thank you very much.
Oh, okay, great. So just when you did your data, Mr. Hetzel, are you aware that the Radnor schools are overcrowded, especially Radnor Elementary?
I didn't make any sort of analysis of the current state of the schools, but the minimal number of students that would be coming out of this, I wouldn't expect would have significant impact. There's
Sure.
Nine students across all grade levels.
So it's and how I look at it, it's not 9 students, it's 9 students here and 9 students here. Eventually, it builds up. There's a large amount. So to me, it's almost being dismissive because it's a small amount. Every drop in the bucket will fill up that bucket. So you didn't. So the answer is, or the question I will ask again is, you did not use that in the ratio of how much the net benefit would be to the school board. Am I correct?
No, the net benefit to the school board would be $61,000 a year.
Okay, but you didn't factor in that there's overcrowding, so it could actually be detrimental.
I would classify it, the impact from this development as being detrimental.
To that amount.
To what amount?
So it may not be 61,000 as you're saying, it may be less.
No, I anticipate it would be at least $61,000 of a positive net fiscal impact. In fact, it could be higher if, in fact, there are fewer students.
But using that assertion, it could be lower if there are more students, correct?
Correct, but we believe that our estimate is actually on the high end And I can cite other local studies that use more locally derived data that would estimate a fewer household multiplier for students, if you'd like me to go into that.
No, I mean, I'm fine with it. I just think that to say this is one school and and you're just using a cookie cutter plan when there's real people, real lives, real situations such as school overcrowding, and you're just saying, well, this is our estimate, our estimate, our estimate, and there's another piece of that puzzle which wasn't used when in your computations. That's all I'm saying. And you're still saying you're still holding firm to the 61,000, which is fine. I just, from what I've seen, I don't necessarily know that that's going to be the case. And then so that's all I have. I just I have concerns with all this building that we're not looking at. We're not looking at the full picture, but you've answered my question. Thank you.
Any other board questions?
Yes, Mr. Hetzel, you testified that the benefit to the township was $31,184. Is that what you're testifying?
Said 31,284, correct?
200, thank you. And you base that on township costs of police and fire expense? Were there other township? What were the township expenses that you built into that to subtract from the revenue from taxes to come up with your estimated benefit of 31,284?
I factored in all township expenses from the township budget, the most recent township budget, and applied it to a per capita multiplier that was derived from the actual existing land use mix in the township, residential properties.
So could you expound upon that? So you basically took the township budget and then determined the per capita township budget and then applied it to how many people in this lot?
32 new people.
So basically you took 42 million and then, so go through that calculation. So if it was it the total budget, or what portion of the budget? How did you come up with that?
It was the total budget, but my model that I used, and I can't get into the specifics right now as to the exact details, but I can tell you how it works. I look at the total budgeted expenditures, and then I use the mix of land use in the township, the total number of residential versus non-residential parcels, and the total residential versus non-residential assessment in the township. And it comes up with, for Radnor Township specifically, based on its total expenditures and that mix of land use, it comes up with a per capita multiplier for residents and a per capita multiplier for people working in non-residential land uses in the township, essentially people who work in the township. The residential multiplier is always higher because those are people who utilize more services in the township on a day-to-day basis. And that accounts for police, fire, township administration, salaries, pensions. It's the entire budget of the township. And it's a per capita cost estimation. There are other marginal costing techniques that might provide a slightly, what I would think, lower cost. I consider the per capita one to be conservatively high. So we use that one in this type of case. And it's meant to be an order of magnitude assessment where you can look at my results and sort of plug in your own assumptions. You can see what happens if you change the value per unit to something different, how that affects the millage, the taxes generated by millage. If you assume a higher or lower per capita multiplier, you can say, okay, apply that to the 32 residents and get a different number.
So the expenditure portion of the township budget that you use for your calculation, did that exclude any items? For instance, did that exclude debt service or other portions of the budget, or was it you took into consideration the entire budget, you're saying?
The entire budget was considered.
And then you base that on the assessed value. And you came up with 31,284. Again, I appreciate, I agree with you that this is an order of magnitude type of analysis, that the specific numbers on this facility may vary greatly. Wouldn't you say when this is complete, the actual township expenditures on this may be significantly different from your estimate based on a per capita allocation of the township budget? Is that correct? Isn't that true?
I don't think so. I think the per capita allocation that I've derived is based on the overall mix in the township today, all different kinds of residential land uses. I have no reason to believe that this particular residential use would impart any sort of radically different cost implication to the township than any other residential use when looked at on an average basis.
Well, different houses have different costs to the township, I would tell you. So in light of this fact, going back to my original point, if we so I asked about the exclusion of certain expenses because with this roadway that is being proposed for this new development, the roadway is anticipated that would be dedicated to the township. And that would mean the township would be responsible for leaf removal, for trash, for snow removal, for repair and maintenance on the road, and other ancillary associated expenses. And my thought is that those were not included in your pro rata or your per capita allocation because they were not necessarily shown on the township budget.
They are shown in the budget. They're included in there, and they are included in my estimate.
Well, they can't be included because the road doesn't exist. So there's no allocation in the town. There's no expense in the township budget for this road.
Well, the houses don't exist yet either. We're applying the cost estimate to typical costs that occur in the township today. In fact, it may even be lower than when you look at it on the full all-in basis, because it may end up being a marginal cost. You already have plows on Ethan Avenue. You're not deploying them separately to go to this development. They're already engaged in that part of the township. Same goes for police. It's not a new patrol area. They're already patrolling the area, so it won't necessarily have the full cost implication. And we've not taken any discount in our cost to account for efficiencies of scale.
But you would agree that there is a marginal additional expenditure and expense associated with plowing these roads, with patrolling these roads by police, by removing the trash, and by repair, maintenance, and other. There has to be a marginal additional expense because today's township does not include this road.
That's why I estimated total cost of $31,284 per year. I'm not saying there's no expense. I'm sorry, a total cost of $29,751 per year.
Okay, all right. So by that calculation, then, if this were a private road that the township had no responsibility for those items, then the net benefit to the township would be significantly higher, almost double.
I wouldn't say significantly higher, because that road is only one portion of the total township budgeted costs. The biggest cost in most township budgets that I see is public safety. And, that $29,751 can be broken down into each cost center of the township if one wanted to look at the percentage that each of those cost centers occupied in the township budget. If public safety is 50%, then half of that $29,000 is devoted to public safety. As a hypothetical.
I don't know what public safety means in respect to this
Public safety.
this cul-de-sac,
and fire.
but my point is, you would have to say that it would be materially more of a benefit to the township if this road were not a public road that was patrolled by and maintained by the township. If it's a private road, the township, the public safety is different. The public safety expense would be different than a private road.
Are you saying the police don't patrol private roads in Radnor?
Generally not. It's a private road. It's maintained and patrolled and paid for by the homeowners if it's a private road.
So do the police not respond to calls on private roads?
They will respond to calls, but they won't put it as part of their regular patrol to the same degree.
I don't know if that's the case, Rich.
My understanding is that it is. For example, during the lockdowns that we've had, the Ardrossan private roads, the patrols are paid for by the homeowners association, not by the township.
I can't speak to Ardrossan, but it's possible that they wanted to have supplemental patrols.
But nonetheless, you would say that it's materially more benefit to the township if the road is a private road that is maintained and patrolled less. Even if it's patrolled the same, which we haven't established, which I would say it's certainly less. But if it's a private road, then there's more benefit to the township with respect vis-a-vis your calculations.
I haven't modeled it, so I can't say that it would be materially better.
But you would have to say that it would be more.
I can't say, I haven't modeled it.
Well, you just said that there's expenditures included in there. Assuming that those expenditures were not included, it would result in more of a benefit, would it not?
I think it would be fairly minor, but possibly it could be more.
So if the township does less patrolling and less maintenance and less no snow removal, the cost of the township would be more? Is that what you're saying?
The cost would not be more. The cost would be marginally less, but I don't know how much less.
But so marginally less, that's my point. But it could be materially less.
Marginally is different from materially, in my opinion, and I think it would be marginal.
Commissioner Booker.
But we established it could be material. You haven't calculated it.
You have established that. I have not.
Commissioner Booker, he's answered your question. You've asked him the same question 5 different ways.
I don't think I got an answer, Solicitor Rice.
Well,
but I think I finally did get it. So it would be of more benefit if this was a private road is the answer to the township under your analysis of a per capita expenditure.
Do you have any more questions for this witness?
Was there ever any attempt to derive the actual costs, not a per capita allocation based on assessed value, and was there ever an attempt to calculate actual costs of 9 additional homes and a road to the township or the school district or any other municipal entity?
I've established that in this analysis. I don't know what you mean by actual cost.
Actual cost rather than a pro rata allocation of total expenditures based on the budget.
This is meant to be an order of magnitude analysis to provide some background to the commissioners so they can understand what the fiscal impacts will be. And I think I fairly demonstrated that the net impacts will be positive to both the township and the school district. Based on
was there ever an analysis based on a pro rata allocation of parcels on rather than a head count? Why not allocate it between the 9,000 tax parcels in the township. Was that done?
The cost calculation considers the number of parcels in the township, the number of residential parcels versus non-residential parcels, and the residential assessment of the township versus the non-residential assessment. And it uses those two items to provide a weighted average. So the parcel component is somewhat built into that. It's baked into the per capita number. It doesn't ignore parcels in the township. It's parcels and assessment.
But the final numbers that you're using are based on a per capita by the head, a head count of persons, not of parcels.
That's correct, because for my type of analysis, that's the most conclusive, and in this case, the simplest and most industry accepted standard among my profession.
No further questions.
Any more board questions? Thank you, Mr. Hetzel. Mr. Keel, you have one more witness, I take.
Frank Tabani.
Then Mr. Cavani sworn in, please.
I think I swore him, but I'll do it again. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And state your name for the record, please.
Frank Tavani, Tavani.
Frank, what's your profession?
I'm a traffic engineer.
Are you a registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I am.
Are you also a registered professional traffic operations engineer?
Yes.
You're a member of the Institute of Traffic Engineers?
Yes.
You've been actually qualified as an expert witness in Radnor numerous times previously, is that right?
Most recently on January 7th, yes.
I would ask that Mr. Tavani be qualified as an expert in traffic engineering.
Okay, Mr. Tavani, again, he's familiar to the township and the board. He'll be accepted as an expert in traffic engineering. Proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tavani, did you perform a traffic engineering investigation for the proposed 9-lot subdivision?
I did.
And did you put your findings in a letter dated October 28th, 2020, which is part of the developmental impact statement that was provided to the township in A1 of the application?
Yes.
What methodology did you use?
Principally, this was a trip generation investigation using ITE methods. I also reviewed average daily traffic volumes as proffered by PennDOT on its website.
What did your investigation reveal?
So I should point out at the outset that I did reference Saldo section 255-20B5, which stipulates that only subdivisions greater than 50 lots require a traffic study. And with 9 proposed lots, and actually a net increase of 8 homes when one considers the existing mansion that's since been raised, we fall far short of requiring any explicit traffic study, at least per that section of the ordinance. Nevertheless, I did perform a traffic investigation, as I stated, principally a trip generation investigation using the ITE standards, ITE being the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And what I found is that 8 additional homes will generate approximately 100 additional daily trips. I should note that ITE makes available, in many cases, 2 different methodologies for determining trip generation. And in this case, I could have estimated the average daily traffic as only being about 75 trips. But to be conservative, I chose the higher of the 2 available methodologies, which gave an exact number of 102 trips per day on average as generated by this proposed subdivision. And to put that into context, South Ithan Avenue presently hosts about 2,800 trips per day. This is pre-COVID. So the net increase could be on the order of 3 or 4% if these homes are constructed.
And when you say trips, that's in and out, correct?
Correct. That's not vehicles, that's one-way trips.
Right. And does that include deliveries and postal service and everything of that nature?
It does. The ITE estimates are based on empirical real-world studies at existing similar land uses, and all traffic is observed and recorded and used for consideration in future editions of the manuals. There's no distinction as to the type of trips. It's just all trips going in and out. Guests, visitors, residents, deliveries, municipal vehicles, you name it.
Within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, do you have an opinion on trip generation of the proposed use?
Yes,
And what is that?
it's a minimal increase.
And also within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, do you have an opinion as to whether the proposed use is compatible to the existing land use of the surrounding community?
Yes,
Also, as to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, are there any adverse traffic impact on the surrounding neighborhood from the proposed use?
I don't anticipate any adverse impacts.
Is there adequate vehicle and pedestrian access to and from the site?
As we heard, the site is proposed to have its own road, a cul-de-sac with a single driveway. There have been discussions about providing sidewalks along Ithan Avenue as well, which will come later in land development. And I believe everything is in place to properly plan for all those activities.
Within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, is there any detrimental impact greater than a typical similar development on the health, safety, and welfare of the adjoining and neighboring properties?
No.
Thank you. That's all I have.
So I'll start. So your data is pre-COVID.
The traffic count data for Ithan Avenue was pre-COVID, yes.
Okay. And you are aware that you have schools such as Agnes Irwin, you have a park close by, and Villanova University. So it is a highly I don't want to say congested, but it is a through street. And when other roads from the township get shut down, it becomes more of a through street. Are you aware of that or no?
I think that could be said of any roads. When there's an adjacent road closure, there's the possibility a subject road could absorb additional activity.
Well, yes and no. There's only, there's just a handful of roads, at least on that side, which we'll say east of 320, that connect Conestoga and Lancaster, which one could argue are Radnor's, main two roads that go pretty much from end to end of the township. Basically, they go from Montgomery County, you could argue, all the way to Chester County, both on Lancaster Avenue and both on Conestoga Road. So that's kind of my point. So you don't see that there's going to be any problem with the increase in cars traffic? There's no safety issue?
Correct. I do not.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
I have just a quick question. We're talking about 9 houses. How many cars do you estimate being in this development when you're doing your study? Do you average by house 2 cars? Is that taken into account?
So the way the ITE model works is you select a variable that is appropriate for the particular land use category. If it were office, for example, you might choose thousands of square feet of gross leasable area. For single-family detached homes, you most often pick units, just strictly the number of houses as the variable to put into the ITE model. And then from that, the model could generate anything that you wish that it proffers: average daily traffic, AM or PM peak hour commuter traffic. So I don't make any assumptions or enter anything relative to the number of cars assumed per unit. The ITE model just looks at giving me output based on the total number of units.
Okay, there's a point of order here, John. I'm only seeing 3 commissioners.
Yeah, I don't see.
Great.
Commissioner
3 commissioners. Farhi just dropped, so we're not quorum. We don't have a quorum. Can't hear you, John. You're on mute.
About now.
Yes, thank you. Not sure what to do with this, but we only have 3 commissioners on the Zoom.
Well, I think Mr. Cornelia is done with the testimony. I think we had a quorum through the end of the testimony, which is Mr. Tavani. If Commissioner Farhi left right after that, then at this point, it's just a discussion about how to proceed further. All the exhibits will be admitted. Mr. Cornelia, you have no further testimony, correct?
No further testimony.
Okay, then my suggestion.
John, I have one further question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I have a question
I
for,
guess, Rich, sorry, before you do, Commissioner Booker, I just want to understand the process. We have 3 commissioners. Can we continue questioning?
I think you can question Mr. Cornelia. The witnesses are done at this point, but I'm going to leave it up to Mr. Cornelia to answer any of Commissioner Booker's questions or any other commissioner questions at this point. Norma's going to continue to record it. If there's anything significant in what occurs over the next 10 or 15 minutes, the other commissioners will be able to read it. There's no vote tonight. All the sworn testimony essentially is done. So let's finish. Moira, do you have any further questions?
No, I don't. Commissioner Booker, go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that it's all.
Yeah, we're okay. They're quasi judicial, but not as strict as being in a courtroom. So go ahead, Commissioner Booker.
thank you, Maura, for the question. That's a good point. My question relates back to this issue of schools, and it was stated, if not stipulated, that this development would be part of the Radnor Elementary School. Is that definitive, or could this development and these homes actually go to Ithan Elementary School, which may actually be closer geographically?
I guess it would be a school district issue.
Yeah.
So we don't know right now what elementary school would serve this or do it.
I think Mr. Cornelia just said it's up to the school district. So no, we do not know. Any further questions?
How was it that it was stated that it was Radnor Elementary in the prior testimony? Was that based on an assumption?
I don't think that was stated by any of our witnesses, Rich.
No, that was stated by Commissioner Farhi. So I would suggest, Commissioner Booker, that you call Commissioner Farhi tomorrow, since he's left, and ask him what the basis was for his assumption that it's Radnor Elementary. But any further questions?
No, I have no need to do that. I understood it. That was the testimony that was either agreed to or that was stated by. If you're saying that was not the testimony of the witnesses, then I'll accept that.
No, it wasn't. It was Commissioner Farhi, I think, brought it up. Anything else?
No, and I'm going to update what I just said. We have Commissioner Jake Abel by phone as a participant as he got bumped out. So
Okay,
I withdraw my my original question.
okay. Well, I think we're at a close here. Any further commissioner questions? Mr. Cornelia, you want to say anything while you wrap up?
Basically that, as we mentioned, this is a conditional use application governed by the zoning code. We've met all the requirements through the testimony to meet the conditional use for this development. We would request that the board approve it.
Okay, and Mr. Cornelia, you have no objection to all the commissioners participating in this decision?
No objection. No objection.
I'll read the transcript.
Yeah, no objection at all.
I will give them a test once they're done reading. So with that, I think the hearing's closed, and I guess the only other part of this would be any public comment. So Commissioner Mulroney, do you want to see if there's any public comment on this application before the board adjourns?
I don't have any, sorry, am I muted? I don't see anything coming in by email. There's one participant who does not have their hand raised.
Okay. So with that, then I think it's just a matter for the board to adjourn this hearing. And as I said earlier, the board is required to make a decision on this 45 days from today. And, there will be some executive session involving this particular application and a discussion, which I'll set up at a later date with the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Do we do
Second.
an adjournment?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're done.
Thank you.